Hello, I'm Brian Downs. This is a Republic if you can keep it. It's about 8:30 in the morning on October 26, 2025, and we move toward war, if you can call it war. The Trump cabal, of course, has been murdering people in the Caribbean. The Trump cabal asserts that the about 50 people to date who have been killed in the Caribbean are members of a Venezuelan drug cartel, and that they were blown to pieces on board their small boats like you might, boats of a size that your neighbor might own to go out on the weekend, that kind of a boat. Because the Trump cabal asserts that they were drug runners off the coast of Venezuela, which is at least 1,000 nautical miles from any U.S. territory. So the idea that that boat was going to take drugs to the United States is absurd, any of those boats. Anyway, we're killing them. Totally extrajudicial killings. We're not at war with Venezuela. And even if those people were members of a drug cartel, they would then deserve to be apprehended, incarcerated by the criminal justice system. Except for the small detail that they weren't anywhere near American territory. So that's going on. This is what we call extrajudicial killings in the trade. But that's not enough. For Donald Trump, he has now ordered the Gerald Ford, a U.S. aircraft carrier, into the Caribbean, in concentrating more American naval firepower in the Caribbean than has ever been done before in history, I believe, in order to fight narco terrorists, which is utterly ridiculous. Sending the Ford in against Venezuela is like blowing up an outhouse with an atomic bomb. So this is illegal, this is unconstitutional, this is outside of the president's power, this is murder, these killings, and they are apparently ramping up their ability to perform yet more killings. And it's totally ridiculous because A, military operations are extremely expensive. You're spending a huge amount of money for very little result. B, the drug cartels, and by the way, there are other drug cartels, not just Venezuelan, but they're concentrating on Venezuela, are international conglomerates. They have billions of dollars in assets. They have thousands of vehicles. You blow up a few of their boats is an inconvenience to them. They will simply change their tactics, as they have always done. C, let's imagine that what you managed to do is reduce the amount of cocaine coming into the United States by 10%. Demand for cocaine is inelastic. People are addicted to it. They don't say, oh gosh, is cocaine too expensive now? Well, I guess I'll switch to espresso. No, they just keep paying. And the people who are helplessly addicted to cocaine and other narcotics that are dealt by these cartels will just pay more. That's the problem with addiction. That's literally the problem, that people will do anything to get the drugs. Raising the price of the drugs by reducing the supply by 10% only makes the problem worse. It only drives addicts into total poverty faster. It only makes addicts more likely to turn to every kind of desperation, armed robbery, burglary, prostitution, the trafficking of other human beings, in order to get the money to feed their habit. The drug problem in our civilization is a medical problem. It's about addiction. It is not a problem you can shoot your way out of. This is demonstrated by the fact that no president before Trump has ever tried to shoot their way out of it, because they understood that that wasn't the solution, because they were much smarter than Donald Trump. But then again, so is a reasonably clever Chihuahua. And so this patriotic flexing of military might against Venezuela, which by the way is a nation that we could knock over like a house of cards in 3 days, is total lunacy that will achieve nothing. In fact, it will only make the drug problem worse. What solves the drug problem is treating it as a medical problem, which is what it is. But we're using a very expensive solution to feed a lot of alleged drug traffickers. Again, the Trump cabal has presented no convincing evidence that the people thus far killed are in fact drug traffickers. We're feeding those people to the fish at huge public expense, and we're getting nowhere. In general, if you look at history, whenever people come up with the solution of, well, let's just kill a bunch of them, that rarely actually achieves results. Even when you look at something like World War II, the solution was not, let's just kill a bunch of them. The solution was, let us destroy Nazi Germany's ability to make war, and so you bomb factories and you attack military units and so on. The policy was not just, let's indiscriminately kill every German we meet, because that would not have produced useful results. And yet, here we are, Donald Trump and his pet moron, Pete Hegseth, who has two priorities, murdering Venezuelans and making sure generals aren't too fat, have decided that let's just kill a bunch of them. It's going to solve the problem. That killing drug traffickers will upset them. Do you not understand that the drug cartels kill each other at a good clip? They have fatalities baked into their business model. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and guess that drug cartels inflict more injuries and fatalities on one another than any law enforcement agency ever has. But here we are. Now, Nicolas Maduro, of course, is the head of state in Venezuela. He has ruined the country. It went from being one of the richest countries in South America to one of the poorest because of socialism, which destroys everything it touches. That is not justification for a war. But here we are. Because Donald Trump, whose dementia is accelerating, does what Pete Hegseth tells him to do, and Pete Hegseth has never met a problem he thought he couldn't solve with a guided missile. We must work to remove this grotesquely incompetent and corrupt administration from power. Impeachment, the 25th Amendment, which removes the president for things like obvious dementia. These are the avenues we must avail ourselves of. Of course, if you've been watching the channel, you know that this particular tragedy and disaster is only one in a long parade. Watch the other videos, or, turn on the news any day of the week. Thank you for returning to the channel. There'll be more soon.